Shut up and sit down.
Hello and wow, it just got good. Oh, we're just trying out a new song. Hello and welcome to this week's bonus episode of the Hold On to Your Butts podcast. That's right, you've found our Spiderman Homecoming SpoilerCast.
Dun dun dun.
Fair warning, massive spoilers ahead for Spider-Man Homecoming, the movie, which just came out this past weekend. Overall, guys, just gut reactions to Spider-Man Homecoming, and then we'll really get into it and break it down.
3 butt squeezes.
Wow.
Out of 5.
Yeah, let's go. Let's give it a review, and then let's work backwards. Let's Tarantino this. Let's Tarantino this one.
Tarantino, I'd give it a 3 out of 5.
3 out of 5. Really?
Yeah.
You guys are 3 out of 5 in it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
5 out of 5.
For real?
Absolutely. This is my favorite superhero movie that I have ever seen. Period.
Over Logan, too?
Yes, over Logan, over Dark Knight. Honestly, I swear to God, over Dark Knight. This is my favorite superhero movie that I've ever seen.
You're going to have to convince me on this, sir.
I'm happy to. The favorite one that I've ever seen. So, give me your guys' reasons for a 3 out of 5. I'm curious. Why? I would have assumed you would have liked this one more.
I did like it. I guess it just made me mad. I think the movie was just fine. I think what bothers me being a Spider-Man fan was, first of all, can we stop sucking Tony Stark's dick? I just really wouldn't mind doing that. The second thing is...
Can you elaborate?
He has to be in every movie, and he has to be the guest star, center of attention kind of thing. It's like, let's just let Tom Holland have his day. You know what I mean? And I get it. There's 22 movies, and they're all linked, and it's fun to see everything. But I bet you Tony Stark's probably not going to be in the new Ragnarok movie. But if they could, they'd force him in there somehow. The second thing is, it just irks me, and I get why they did this. I get the writing, I get the mindset behind it. Spider-Man they made him like, he's like they have the training wheels, and he's like learning to be a hero. When everybody's up and running in the comic books, like Spider-Man's been around way longer than most of these other heroes. He's an established hero, especially when the Avengers are being established, and so it's just tough for me to for them to like they're like looking down on him, and he was my idol growing up. You know what I mean? Like, you guys aren't anywhere near as good as Spider-Man, and you guys are like treating him like a child. Now, he is a child, but nobody technically knows that in the comic books. You don't know he's a high schooler. But I get why they did it, and it's not a bad thing. It just irks me when I watched it, and that's just one thing I just can't get over, and that's me personally, so I really am being harsh on the movie for something that bothers me. But they did a fantastic job. I think Michael Keaton, hands down, was the best part. Adrian Toomes was a fantastic bad guy. I love what they're doing with setting it up for potentials for the future with Matt Gargan and Sinister Six as potential. I think there's just a lot of potential with this movie. This next Spider-Man movie is going to start the next saga. So they really did a good setup. And I thought it was funny, but it wasn't Guardians of the Galaxy 2 funny, where it was just over the top and not really it just kind of took it away from the story. But I absolutely loved it, and I thought Michael Keaton was I loved when he was on the scene. I just loved every time he was on. Every time the Vulture was there, he wasn't overdone, and every time he was the Vulture or when he was just Michael Keaton, and the twist in it was really, really good too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So.
No, and I agree with you, Wyatt. Like, some of your points, like, I just feel like the movie was too like kiddie-ish and too playful at times, and it's like, to your point, like, of him being an idol, like, I love Spider-Man. I love Spider-Man, and I grew up on Spider-Man. And just to see him as a 15-year-old and be like, I'm 29 now, how do I relate to Spider-Man at this point in his life? There's not a lot of relatable things. Maybe from my past life, maybe the reason they did this is because it's the kids that are coming up now that are seeing Spider-Man for the first time, how they can actually relate to him, when they're in high school and the things they're going through and everything like that. So, like, to me, it was a little bit unrelatable in some aspects, but overall, I thought the movie was really good, but the story was lacking a little bit. But again, Michael Keaton did an absolutely amazing job with the Vulture, and overall the movie was still good, but it didn't live up to the hype that was. I think that's the biggest thing with like movies that come out. There's this huge hype train. It's like, oh, Spider-Man's going to be amazing, and they show you clips here and there, and they give small pieces away of the movie, and you like. To me, I got so amped up for it. It didn't live up to the hype that following it for
And
me.
there was two plot things that bothered me in this movie. One was the Sokovia Accords was overlooked in this. Really, really kind of... So if Tony Stark was such a big thing in promoting Spider-Man, and it was his test to become the next Avenger, like he was going to sign him. I know it was a test, but it really wasn't a test. In the movie Civil War, when Tony Stark brought the security, the head of security of the government to them to talk about the Sokovia Awards, Sokovia Accords, he promoted it so much, and he was so passionate about it. He's like, "Look, when we were kicking ass, we got this kid killed, and we were flying around, and we dropped a fucking city on him." And he was so passionate about it that he fought Iron Man over it. And it's like he's trying to bring on Spider-Man, and he's encouraging him to go out and fight crime in the backyard and do exactly what he's telling his entire team not to do. And that's a big, my head, an oversight that they did. The second oversight was when the boat was being split in half, he ridiculed him for fucking that up, which he really, really didn't do such a bad job. If he wasn't there, then the Vulture would have killed a lot of people. He just kind of didn't save it the nice way he would like. But when Tony Stark's equipment was getting stolen at the end and he crashed an entire plane on a beach, which could have been populated, he applauded Spider-Man. You know, like that one was okay, but the other one wasn't. And that kind of bothered me. And he was just like, why did you ridicule him for the first one? But the second one, he fucking crashed a plane in a public place.
So I think, like, in my eyes, the reason that Tony Stark gives him, like, carte blanche to go out in Brooklyn and be the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man is that the stakes are so much lower than what the Avengers are dealing with, right? Like, he's just going to stop bank robberies, and he's just going to stop people getting their purses stolen, and he's like, he's not dealing with a falling aircraft that's going to land on a city. So I think it's a little different than, like, the Sokovia Accords from Civil War, and I think that Tony Stark looks at this and throughout the whole movie looks at Peter and says, this is your training opportunity. This is how you prove to us that you are ready, and we're not just going to tap on you for the doomsday scenarios. Like, we want to have you be a part of the team, but you got to show us it first. Just like when you're growing up, like, you know, you got to earn your stripes. And, you know, whether or not you agree with the fact that, you know, this is a younger version of Peter Parker, it is a younger version of Peter Parker. You know, our Peter Parker in the comics did start in high school and stuff, but a large, you know, story arc is when Peter's an adult too, like we saw in the Sam Raimi movies. So, yes, maybe this is a little bit out of the timeline of maybe what we wanted to see, but still, given the timeline that it is, I think it was a really good coming-of-age story for Peter. So I'm going to start with where I agree with you guys, and then go to where I disagree with you guys. Where I agree with you guys, Michael Keaton was fucking awesome. So Michael Keaton, what was so cool about having Michael Keaton be the bad guy is just like the juxtaposition of the aura or the person that is, or the acting chops that are Michael Keaton versus the acting chops that are Tom Holland. Every time they were on the screen together, you almost felt intimidated. Like, you almost felt intimidated, like, oh, fuck, this is Michael Keaton. Like, you almost felt like Tom Holland was being squashed, just his, like, personality was being squashed because of how intimidating Michael Keaton was. And they made him fucking scary. Like, his fucking wings were, like brutal. Like, when he got his wings out in that boat and it's, like, cuts through everything and he's coming right at Spider-Man with his wings, you're like, oh, shit. Like, it was almost a feeling that you got when, like, Spider-Man 2 with the Raimi movies was a great movie, and Doc Ock's arms were just, like, so intimidating, and they felt weighty, and they felt, like, really impressive and really cool. Like, I felt the same way about Vulture's wings. Like, they really felt like they would fuck you up, and, like, the way that he was controlling them, you could tell, like, they almost had a mind of their own, the way that they were swinging around and stuff. I just thought it was so cool, and I was literally, like, scared of him every time he was on the screen.
That prom scene...
Yeah,
was, I mean, not just the Vulture, but Michael Keaton as a dad
in the car.
Exactly, it was perfect.
That was my favorite scene. Was that whole thing?
And also, like, when was the last time you went to a movie? When you went to a movie and you were in a crowded theater and they had a reveal that genuinely surprised everyone. I was genuinely surprised. Didn't see it coming.
When he opens the door,
the door and it's Michael
like,
Keaton,
what the fuck?
and that's her dad.
I was surprised.
It was one of those moments.
You weren't expecting to think that I was supposed to get something.
It was one of those moments where, like, I finally, like, I can't tell you the last time I heard this in a theater. I literally heard everyone go, Like everyone was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe this is."
Did you get like that feeling in your chest though, and you felt like drop to your stomach?
I felt that way multiple times throughout this movie.
Yeah.
So here's where I'm going to get into my like disagreement with you guys, and why I'm surprised you guys are so just kind of okay with this movie and not over the moon about it. Like there are a couple genuine moments where I was scared. Like I was in a movie, like regardless if it's a superhero movie or what it was, like I felt the stakes of what Peter was dealing with. When he's on top of the Washington Monument and he's like looking down, I was like, "Fuck, I'm getting like." Scared of heights right now. Like for some reason that really the way that they angled the camera and stuff, you're like, oh shit, that's really cool. And I saw it in 3D because it was the only way to see IMAX. And 3D was actually pretty dope.
We didn't see it in 3D.
It was actually, I hate 3D movies, but it was actually pretty dope. Like it worked really well,
That's
especially in a
nervous
scene like
about
that.
seeing it in 3D.
So I thought that he was in high school and that he was so unsure of his powers and that he was still kind of learning and that Tony Stark had to come and be like the father figure was really a cool story arc for Spider-Man. Like this is his moment to shine, and it showed that a superhero movie can be grounded and feel like a high school drama movie, like a John Hughes movie, like a Ferris Bueller's Day Off or a Breakfast Club.
Well, the funny thing, they had like a Ferris Bueller.
The actual reference to
Ferris
Bueller throughout it. So like I think he did a really good job of capturing that spirit and some of those like great like late 80s like teen high school movie feel, or Superbad even. Like it had a lot of like undertones of Superbad, I thought, with him and his friend. His friend was fucking awesome.
That's the
like,
Hobgoblin.
Yeah, exactly. Ned, and he's kind of like a mashup of a bunch of different characters, this Ned guy, because he also looks exactly like Miles Morales' good buddy. I can't remember his name. It's escaping me from the comics. But I thought, like, he was perfect. It made me think of, like, being in high school with you, Wyatt. Like, if one of us found out that the other person was Spider-Man, you'd be like, fuck, you're Spider-Man? And, like, how you would be involved with that whole thing and, like, how, like, the other person would help him out and be like, we gotta go to this party and you gotta be Spider-Man. It's gonna be fucking... And that's what you would do if you were a kid. Like, I thought he was so believable as a high school student. And, like, I felt like, yes, we can't relate to him now at our age, but I was like, fuck, I remember being in high school and, like, yeah, this would be awesome. Like, you know what I mean? And so I thought that was really cool. I thought that since the stakes were so much different, like, we were able to tell a more personal story. When I say, like, stakes are different, like, they're not saving the world from an alien invasion. It's just this guy, Michael Keaton, whose character was so good because he was relatable. It's this guy who lost his job to the government, to Tony Stark, where you could see where, from Adrian Toome's perspective, Tony Stark would be the bad guy, and why he would have chosen this life of crime, because he was trying to do things, you know, on the straight and narrow.
Yep, his business.
He was trying to do things on the straight and narrow, and the government came through and shut down, like, the biggest contract they had, and you could actually believe it. Now, where I had, like, a sort of a problem with that narrative with him is that, like, he goes off screen, then it's, like, 8 years later, and now we see him murdering people. And it's just kind of like this throwaway, like, well, how did he get there? If he's still going to be, like, this family man that we're going to have, like, some kind of, like, respect and kind of root for in a weird way, like, we can't just see him, like, murder people so willy-nilly, but especially, I mean, I don't care, but in a Marvel movie, you just wouldn't expect to see that.
I thought that was the funniest part of the movie is when he's, like, I thought that was the what gun was it? Like, and it's like the vaporized gun,
the gravity gun.
Yeah, the gravity gun. He's like, I thought that was a gravity gun.
I thought what I really liked about this movie is I think they're setting up for a Sinister Six because, first of all, Michael Keaton, they had the credits of him knowing who the bad guy is and talking to Matt Gargan. Matt Gargan is the Scorpion, and that is played by Nacho from Better Call Saul. I don't know his real name. Fantastic actor, so they put money in that actor. So I'm pretty sure, and they mention how they don't want to use villains that they've used before. Mm-hmm. So you're thinking Mysterio, you're thinking Scorpion,
the Hunter,
the Shocker
Raven
was not caught. So the Shocker was in this movie. I really liked how they did the Shocker. The Shocker was never an interesting character to me, so I'm glad they made him kind of like a head thug, but also intimidating and stuff like that. So they could bring the Shocker back, the Mysterio, the Hunter. And so I think what they're leaning towards is all the gadgets that fell from the sky from the movie is going to be the gadgets that Tony... and his right-hand man that designs all the weapons, he was never caught.
The Tinkerer.
The Tinkerer, so...
Is that the guy? That's the...
the guy with the beanie and...
Yeah.
They could easily do a Sinister Six segue in even the very next movie and just say, we got to get a group of guys together, we got all this equipment, we're going to take down Spider-Man and his buddies or whatever.
And I like that they're doing it in that way where it's like the bad guys, the rogues gallery for Spider-Man are all spawning out of, like, these everyday thugs. Just because Spider-Man is the everyman hero. The reason that we all love Spider-Man so much is because of how much we can relate to Spider-Man. Like, he's not
That's
Bruce
exactly
Wayne.
why
He's not Tony Stark. He's not a billionaire. He's not a god.
Yeah.
He's this regular guy who was given great power and has to balance it with great responsibility. You know, the reasons that we've always, loved him. So I just, like, I absolutely adored this movie. I thought the action was great. There was one scene in particular that I think is my favorite scene in any superhero movie, when he's getting crushed. When he's, like, when the Vulture takes the whole warehouse down on him,